we're really going to be working on using our parent meetings as an opportunity to provide a little bit of a parent orientation. We know that the school year is new to all of us, and remote learning is new to all of us. This is a system we haven't been able to navigate before. And so we thought it was really, really important to talk to you about just to provide you with a lot of information and tools that might be able to help make remote learning a little bit easier and help parents and families understand how the system is going to work a little bit. So this week, my goal is to kind of talk to you about some things that we'd love you to know about as we're starting the first week of school. And then next Tuesday at 6:30, we will be having a presentation in English. And at 7:30, we'll be having a presentation in Spanish. And it'll really give more of the nuts and bolts of remote learning, things like how does my student access the meetings? How do I get onto the learning platform? Things like that. So tonight's kind of just to let you know what to expect for next week. And then at next week's meeting, we will build into what you can expect as classes kind of resume normal, as much as I'm going to use that term loosely, normal remote learning activities, if that makes sense. So for the last couple of weeks, we've really focused on the idea of starting strong, both with our staff and our students, and how we roll out remote learning. We know that the way that we plan and implement this over time, one bite-sized piece at a time, is going to help make it more successful for everyone. And so our priorities have been to build a really solid foundation that we believe will best serve our students and our families during remote learning. And we're really focusing during this first week on reconnecting and connecting for the first time, building relationships and getting to know our students and our families, and then giving students and families the opportunity to develop some remote learning skills that maybe you might not have to put to practice when it's a typical school year where we would just load the kids up on the bus and deliver them. So we thought it before we jumped in, it was important to provide that common foundation for all students and families that allowed them to feel confident and competent as they are going into remote learning. So one of the things that we have done as a district, and we were going to do this whether we were on site or remotely, is we have developed advisory classes or homeroom classes at each level. And this is a core group of students. We've talked about this a little bit before during our meetings, of about 15 students or so. We feel like it's important that one of the things we heard last year from our parents and from our students is that they needed to feel connected. And so advisory classes are one of the ways that we're going to do this. Advisory classes are going to meet every single day on Google Meets, and there'll be no more than 15 to 20 students assigned to a teacher, and that's going to be like their core group, their core class, their core group of classmates. The point of advisory and homeroom is really to provide that daily check-in, that daily social interaction that kids were missing so much last spring, to kind of try to create as much of a school and class community remotely as possible until we can be together on site, to support students' social emotional needs and provide them with an outlet to ask questions, get support, and to choose some soft skill instruction. As you know, there's a lot of skills that we need to have to be successful in school, reading, writing, but things like organization, time management, communication, those aren't necessarily things that are taught explicitly in our curriculum, but they're important skills that students will need to have to be successful. So we'll provide some opportunity to do some of that instruction and practice. Our homeroom teacher will serve as kind of a progress monitor for our students, kind of tracking the students in their class, making sure that they are navigating the remote learning platform, making sure parents and students feel supported, just kind of checking in and making sure things are going smoothly, and kind of being that go-to person that a family knows that they can check in with if they run into difficulties or have a question or need some support in some way. Our advisory and homeroom teachers will be scheduling regular check-ins with families, and that'll be on a schedule that works for the families. That's one of the things we learned last spring, is that it was probably best to always keep the line of communication open, but to kind of have our families help us guide that decision on how often we checked in and what that looks like and how that is going to happen. So this week, your student hopefully will be mailed out a postcard from their homeroom advisory teacher to kind of introduce themselves. It's a little different when we're remote and we don't have that opportunity to come like to an open house or a back to school barbecue or something like that. So this is going to be kind of that first positive connection that they'll get from their teacher. It's a little bit going to be personalized and specific to your student. And then we're also going to be able to start making phone calls this week, because during the first week of school, in lieu of traditional class periods, we really feel it's important that we have an individual one-on-one kind of orientation, welcome conference with each student in the district to make sure that we've introduced ourselves to the family. The family feels like they have what they need to be successful. They know the schedule, they know the logins and things like that, kind of that personalized coaching that we think is really important and really a critical piece of remote learning. So you might be getting a phone call this week from a number that you might not recognize, or a text message. I would encourage you to please check your voicemail if they leave a voicemail, or to call it back, because it's quite possible that it could be an employee from our school district calling to schedule that welcome appointment during next week's first week of school. The next thing we're going to be doing next week to really kind of roll off the school year and get it off to a great start is on the first day of school, which we traditionally have orientations at our schools on that first day on site. We felt like it was important to kind of honor that tradition, but also use it as an opportunity to introduce our students to our school, to their grade level teachers, to their principal. Some students are moving from one building to the next, so it would really just give them an opportunity to get to know the faces and the names of the people that they'll be interacting with all the time. And we'll have them scheduled by grade level, and we'll send that information out later this week. They're really meant to be fun and engaging and interactive for students. They're really meant to say, like, welcome to school. We're so excited to have you. Here's a little bit about what you can expect. So they really are geared towards our students. Of course, parents are welcome to attend, but we are trying to really gear them to our students at the age and appropriateness of where they're at. We want to be able to provide a little bit of some instruction to our students about what remote learning is going to look like and how it's going to work. And then we are going to record those sessions for people who cannot, and for students and families who can't attend them, so that we will be able to send those out as well. So if your grade level orientation session is at a time that you can't attend, you won't have to feel like you're missing, because you'll still get the opportunity to see the teacher and the principal and to get all that information.
Can you kind of
just a little reminder, if you can mute, if you're unmuted, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
So make sure I'm level so I can actually.
What is this fixing?
This, I'm making a box.
Awesome. Thank you. Another thing we're going to offer is, like, similar to this week, during our regular scheduled time, we will be offering that second parent orientation session that I just spoke about. And really what it's going to be is kind of the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of remote learning. Things like what time is live instruction? How does my student know how to log on? How do I know how to help my student log on if they need help? What does the online platform look like specifically? Like, can I get a visual? Can I see what it looks like and what the students are going to see? So that as you are working to support your students at home, you will have, hopefully by the time we get done with that orientation, you'll feel really confident about what things are going to look like and how a student is going to navigate that system and how you can help be their coach through that system. We're also going to talk about the ways as a district that we are going to try to communicate consistently with our parents, several modes, so that you know that you can always look to these three places, whether it's Remind, school messenger emails, robocalls, whatever our school, whatever those things are. We want to make sure everyone knows where to find accurate information for their students, so you always have a place to look. And then we will also be talking about the technology and connectivity supports that are available for students who don't have access to those, and also to kind of share some ideas on how we can be supporting students and families if by chance they aren't available to access the live instruction during the day. So as I explained earlier, this week our staff is calling to set up Welcome Week student conferences. And these are really, they will be by appointment. They are meant to kind of introduce teachers to their students and introduce students to their teachers, and to kind of get to know their students in a way that's not just jumping into classwork. The teachers will lead these. They will probably be held on Google Meets. Unless that doesn't work for a family, then we might be able to do them over the phone, but we really want to try to create that face-to-face experience as much as we possibly can while remotely. During these meetings, aside from that introduction and connection, we're going to set up that communication with that advisory teacher on that system that works for the family and the teacher, whether it's text messages or phone calls, and how frequently they would like that to happen. They will provide the student with their schedule of their live instruction, and just make sure that they feel confident in accessing that after watching the student orientation, and then just confirm the student's login information. We are really lucky this year that Mr. Kaiser, our technology coordinator, has worked to create a site, a portal that's going to go live later in the week on our website, but that students really just have to remember their main login, and everything they need will be in that one portal. And so instead of having to go look for things in multiple spots, so that'll be really nice for our students and for our families. And then again, they will have the opportunity to answer questions and just to get that clarification in of something that might be a more individualized question, and try to get that answered before those calls are happening. We're calling this week to set those up, and traditionally those will probably happen in the daytime, but if a day appointment doesn't work for a student and a student and family member, we can make those. We have a few evening spots available as well. Again, these are really student focused, so parents are always welcome to attend and encouraged to attend, but it really is that opportunity for our students and teachers to get to know each other a little bit better. On Thursday, we are going to have an open house, and in the normal school year and a non-remote school year, that's usually just an opportunity for parents and families to swing by school, get to meet their teachers face-to-face, introduce themselves. But this year it'll look a little bit different, just like everything looks a little different this year. One of the things that we are doing is that we know many parents and students work, and that some may not be able to access their teacher during the school day for help with assignments or concepts. So one thing we have done is we've set up one evening a week, which is going to be Thursday evenings, where teachers will be available via phone or Google Meets to provide academic support to students and or parents helping their students at home. This is truly meant to be an open time where teachers are available to answer questions, clarify information, provide feedback, and the additional evening opportunity for communication with families. So in that spirit of wanting to get that tradition started, that is how we will be doing open house over the first week of school. We felt it was important to start the school year off by providing that evening opportunity, just like we will each week, to introduce the format and to provide students and families with the chance to access their teachers in this way, so that as the school year gets started, you've had the chance to do that once already. And it's truly meant to be an open house, dropping in and out, just like if you go to a real estate open house where you kind of come in, look around, and then you hop out. It's really meant to be more informal and more just an opportunity to chat and get to know the teacher. And there's really not a planned program per se that teachers, no one's going to be presenting anything. It's just a chance to connect with your teacher. Schools will be sending out that open house information via Remind next week, so that you will get to see the specific contact information for each of your students' teachers, or for your students' advisory teacher and homeroom teacher if they're in the elementary. So all of these things that we're trying to lay out are really based in the idea that if we help start students strong and help lay that foundation for success, remote learning is going to be a much more successful experience for everyone. They're really designed, these things that we're doing are really designed to provide opportunity for us all to practice remote learning success habits, things that weren't taught in a book, but that are really going to be pivotal to successful and confident remote learning. Things like communication, coming back to a schedule and structure after having kind of this time off. Finding a way to communicate and ask and clarify questions, and just creating those connections that are usually so easy to create when we are face to face. We also have designed them because we are asking students and families to demonstrate a lot of tools and skills that you might not traditionally use every day. So we want to give you the chance to kind of get a running start at it and to have the opportunity to practice these things before that first day of actual whole class instruction. And those are things like, accessing students' emails and that whole Google suite, whether it's the calendar or docs or anything like that. We want students and families to be familiar with using Google Meets. We want to really reinforce the use of Remind as a really great communication tool that allows both kind of whole group messages from either a school or a classroom, but that also allows parents to communicate individually with teachers. And we'll present how to do that next week in our orientation session. And then obviously, Edgenuity is new to all of us, and we are learning it too, but we want to give all of our families a chance to get to see what it looks like, to get to know what it looks like, and to feel confident that when it's time to dive in, they feel ready to go. So again, this first week is going to look a lot different than it traditionally does, but I think we can all agree that this school year is going to look a lot different than it traditionally does, and we felt like it would be remiss of us to start the school year as we traditionally have. So we really want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure that you feel supported, make sure that you feel like you feel confident in what is expected of your student and of how to help them in that role as their learning coach at home. So I guess, Mr. Hoppus, now we could probably open it up for questions, or I think that would be probably a good thing to do.
Okay, we will open it up for questions. Just one quick announcement. This Thursday and Friday, district staff are delivering Chromebooks that were requested by parents and students. Just over in the last 24 hours, we've had over 50 more requests. So we're still trying to work through that. And we're going to try to get as many out as we can on Thursday and Friday. Then also, Ms. Linder will talk a little bit about the hubs next week that will help with that also. Just a couple questions that are in there as of right now. One question is how do the appointments get set up? School staff this week will be calling parents to set up those appointments for next week that Melissa referred to. I'll also mention a follow-up question to that, and the reason I said that one first is that is a call for both the parents and the student, and if so, will they be occurring at night when we're home from work and our children are with us? And I would say, yes, the conferences are for both. Although the students have their own orientation, it doesn't hurt for both to be on. As parents receive that call, inform the person that has talked to you what the best time would be, and we'll do our best to adapt our times to make sure it works for parents.
And can I add that, Mr. Hoppus?
Sure.
So I think that we recognize that, especially at the younger grades, kids are going to probably need a little more support in accessing those appointments with their teachers. And at the secondary, as much as we probably all would want to be present for those, it's not necessarily a requirement that a parent be present. It's really an opportunity for a teacher and a student to get to know their advisory teacher, to get to know each other, but you're obviously always welcome to attend.
Another question, we're still planning on bringing elementary kids back in October. I fear my kindergarten will have much difficulty navigating this on her own, and my husband and I work full time. I can share with you when the board passed my recommendation to start school in distance learning, they were going to reevaluate it as of October 1st. I can also share with you this Wednesday at the school board meeting, the board's going to probably spend an hour or longer discussing the metrics and what it would look like to evaluate it as of October 1st. So that decision has not been made yet. As Melissa mentioned, school starts next week with parent-teacher conferences, which is different than this week, or different than normal times. I think the question, how are you supposed to talk to 5 or 6 teachers in an hour when 100 or plus parents are trying to do so? I think the reference is to a middle school, high school, and the only staff member that will call for the middle school or high school is the advisory teacher your child is scheduled to be in. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes, and if it's referring to the evening sessions, open house, when we do those initial phone calls and teachers reach out, they're going to share a multitude of ways that you can get in contact with them. And my guess is that for a lot of our advisory teachers, or a lot of our teachers, if you reached out to them prior to that Thursday evening session and needed to be responded to, they're going to have time throughout the day and in the afternoon to get back to you. But this is truly like, we're stuck on this concept. I've tried to explain it to my student. They're not getting it. Can we hop on and can you explain it to them? Something like that. And if there's teachers are also really good at making appointments, individual appointments that can happen outside of that time. This is just kind of like an open time that we can for sure make sure that they're available to answer questions, academic questions.
So a follow-up question to that is, the person who asked the question meant an open house. Open house is just a quick meet and greet and check in, and more so of a practice of how to get into a Google Meets session for both students and parents. What if we don't get off work until 8 p.m. and not home till 8:30? How's this going to work with getting help and learning what we need to help our kids out? I would say stay in close contact with your teachers. The district is working to get what they call technology hubs up and running. Those technology hubs will open up on the 21st. They're going to be reserved initially for families and students who do not have internet access, but we'll also provide time, and there should be enough time to those technology hubs for people to get extra support. And the district will provide transportation, and we will get more information out early next week about that, because those again will be starting on the 21st. But I would say also talk to your teacher of your children, and they might be able to help with that also. When will we get class schedules? I think that's referring to the middle school, high school, and I think both those principals are online and may be able to answer that.
For Astoria High School, your students should have received an email approximately about an hour ago that has quite a bit of information, bulleted and numbered with specific links that will help them navigate some of these changes. They should receive their updated schedules by afternoon tomorrow. And with schedule changes and requests, there are embedded links to how to do that. It's pretty slick on how they can navigate that through their Google platform.
So for the middle school, we went live last week. So all of our middle school students have an advisory teacher, and that is posted. In addition to that, they are assigned to core content classes. As far as a live schedule for the week of the 21st, that will be coming out later this week or early next week as to specific times for each live session. We have ensured that there's no conflict, so there won't be, a math class and an English class going on at the same time, but that will come out later this week, early next week.
Another question is, when should parents be expecting those calls? And I think the person is referring to parent-teacher conference calls for next week. Building principals are online and should be able to answer that.
Those calls should be happening during the school day within the next couple of days, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, at the latest on Friday.
So at the middle school, we are orchestrating our conferences that need translation first. Those calls will begin tomorrow, followed with Thursday and Friday for scheduling all general conferences. Staff will be asking a number of questions as far as time, availability, what works. So please feel free to ask questions they are ready to help you with resources.
Is Mr. Pluhoff on? Mr. Pluhoff or Ms. Gore, can you answer that question about when they can expect calls?
Yeah, I can. We are starting to call first thing tomorrow. I have a meeting with staff at 8, and then right after that, we'll start working on our phone calls.
That's at Lewis and Clark Elementary. And I would expect Astor to be the same starting calls tomorrow. But it should be at the very latest, it should be on Friday. Another question. My high school student spoke to a teacher today who said they won't be having school on Fridays. Is this true? Melissa, do you want to talk about the schedule for Friday, please?
Yes, so the students will have assignments and activities to complete every single day, whether they are, well, every single day like Monday through Friday, whether they are live or recorded. Friday, the only live sessions we will be offering will be those class advisory meetings. And then any other content that they would be assigned that day might be a recorded lesson from their teacher or one that's within the platform.
Another question is in regards to planning seniors' final year, is there a formal parent group I can connect with to see how to support senior celebration, and et cetera, probably others. Mr. Jackson, can you answer that?
One of the challenges with the celebratory events of the senior year is that many of those are not directly associated with Astoria High School, and it's done through a senior celebration committee that generally organizes themselves in the summer leading up to that senior year. I have not been in contact with any of those leaders at this time in steps of how to set that up, but am expecting to hear from them shortly. Certainly, having some parents reach out and get this process going would be a great thing.
Another question, and Ms. Breck from the middle school will be able to answer this. Will the middle school have one teacher for all classes?
So the system at the middle school, every student has an advisory or homeroom teacher that will facilitate instruction planned by content licensed teachers that is available through the Edgenuity platform. So they will have a homeroom base with access to instruction from their content area teachers. And then in addition, during what we call it the middle school homework help, but as a general term is office hours, the ability to access those teachers beyond just the live instruction, but a minimum of 3 times a week for additional support in specific content areas. And all of that will be going out, I want to say by Thursday, possibly Friday.
Another question is, what day will middle schoolers students have a complete full schedule virtual school day?
Again, I'm hoping to have that published publicly Thursday, the latest Friday. Staff is currently reviewing it to make sure there are no errors in the times, but that will be posted publicly Thursday, latest Friday.
But I think also just important, the first full day of live instruction will be Monday, the 21st. With all
Yes,
students having access to all their live instruction and Edgenuity content.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Linder. So that first week of classes starting on the 14th are our conferences, our individual conferences. The schedule that we are going to be pushing out later this week will be for the 21st on. Thank you, Melissa.
So another question, so on Monday morning, the 14th, my children do not need to be up and ready to log on to anything because schedules don't come out until next week. You will have schedules earlier and will be assigned to go to an orientation on the 14th online. Another question is, when will access be granted to Edgenuity? Melissa, do you know the answer to that?
I would hope that it would be by the end of this week, but as we are learning Edgenuity, we've learned that we have to have all of our content for the entire term at the secondary level loaded and in there before we can go live for our students. So we're really working hard and have taken trying to take a lot of things off the teachers this week so that they can really prepare that content and have it ready. But my goal, by the time that you have your conference with your parents or with your teacher next week, hopefully it'll be up so that you can actually practice getting on and seeing what's inside when you have that conference.
Another question or comment is, there's nothing in parent view for my middle schooler.
Just complete transparency. We've had some kind of a glitch that I was notified about 10 minutes ago. We are currently working on that. I am hoping by tomorrow morning, and I apologize to all of my families, that those will be pushed out. They were ready to go last week, and we've hit some kind of hang up that I am not tech savvy enough to navigate, but Mr. Kaiser will help us and we will get them out. So expect to see who your advisory teacher is, who each content area teacher is. Again, by Thursday or Friday, I'll have specific times for live sessions on the 21st. Again, I apologize that that is not currently.
Another question is, can you explain the hubs in that process, specifically what it looks like, timeline, and how to connect with these hubs? So the district has 4 hubs. By guidance from the Department of Ed, we cannot have more than 10 children in those hubs at one time. The hubs will be located at each of our schools in large spaces, very open. I think the middle school is in the gym, high school's in a gym, Lewis and Clark's in a cafeteria, and Astor's in a gym, but we can have no more than 10 people at a time. Obvious health and safety standards will be, and social distancing will take place. By guidance, students who attend those hubs cannot be there for more than 2 hours at a time, and that's coming from the state. As to how to connect with these hubs, again, we'll be putting more information out early next week on the hubs and how to sign up for the hubs. I mentioned before, access to those hubs are going to be provided to students who do not have internet access at this time first, and then anybody who also needs help and support. Those hubs can be used for both just internet access, or they can also be used to get some academic help and support while they're there. And again, no more than 2 hours at a time. The district is, as we ask people to sign up, and again, more information will come out next week, the district will also provide transportation to those hubs. The hubs are set up in neighborhoods. They're not set up by school. So anybody who lives by Astor, if you're a kindergartner or a 12th grader, you will attend the Astor hub. And the same way at Lewis and Clark, anybody who lives on the Lewis and Clark area would attend the Lewis and Clark hub. It's not done by grade level. So that's the best we know. But for sign up and those type of things, we'll be putting more information out next week. I think the information about parent view is answered by Ms. Breck. So Melissa, you can answer the next one. Will we find out next week how many hours an elementary student will be online working per day?
Yes, I actually have that right in front of us, and we shared that a little bit last week with the minutes, but we will definitely be sharing that, and you will get the very specific times that your students are scheduled to be on live with their teacher. When you get that conference call, when you get that phone call and that appointment with the teacher, that is going to be shared with you.
There's a question around Chromebooks, and a person may have, this is a good question. Someone who'd submitted a survey saying they probably needed a Chromebook, but as the summer went on, they got a Chromebook, so they may not need that. If you can go back into the parent survey and state that you don't need.
Mr. Hoppus, I don't know
Yeah.
that they can do it twice.
Okay.
But we are reaching out to every single person who was on that list to confirm delivery. So when that phone call or text message comes, you can just correct it when that happens.
And we ask parents if they do not need them, the Chromebooks, like they thought they were, that they do communicate with us, because we've had, over the last, like I said, 24 hours, we've had a large number of people ask for Chromebooks. And we, like the rest of the nation, we initially thought we could get all of them out, but we have quite a few that are on back order just because every district's trying to get them. So we're trying to be very specific with those needs. There's two other questions around Student View. A high school student didn't receive an email. When should we expect it, or should we call the school? Mr. Jackson?
Yes, the email was sent out to all cohort email bulk lists. So that was sent out at 5:04. So I have communicated with a brief email to our IT specialist, Mr. Kaiser, and we're looking into why that is the case. I have sent the corresponding forwarded message to those who reached out to me.
A few other questions were asked. When the elementary teacher's sending out a set of schedule of when both their kids are expected to be logged into their classes during the day.
I think that we chatted about that. That'll happen when you have your appointment next week with your teachers.
Monica, since the first day is not until the 21st, when will the last day be in graduation? The calendar has not changed at this point as to when the last day will be. I would have to have I don't have a calendar in front of me to tell when graduation is. Another question is, will elementary students be evaluated during the conference next week, or will this come later?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So next week, when students and teachers get to know each other, we felt like that was important to have that happen before we started assessing student skills. So during that conversation, and when they're setting up that conversation, they will ask you to make a follow-up appointment where a teacher will kind of do some diagnostic assessing of student skills in order to best adjust their instruction and differentiate their instruction.
A question is, will my high school child have the same advisory teacher as they did last year?
So advisories at Astoria High School are based upon 1, the grade level that they are in, 2, what math class they are currently enrolled in, and 3, the geography in which the student resides. So the chances are not likely that your student will have the same advisor. There's a slim possibility, but in order to maintain cohorts based upon geography and those requisite elements of mathematics and grade level, our advisories had to be shifted from a blended all 4 years type of model to a grade level model. So the chances are not likely.
I'll also mention that Ms. Donovan, the assistant principal at the high school, mentioned, and we'll probably go over it with students during orientation, that high school students will go to advisory at 9 o'clock all next week, starting on Tuesday. I think, Nancy, they answered the question about assessments. Melissa, do you see that question? How will assessments look, and what is the projected timeframe?
So next week, when parents or when teachers call and chat with students and parents, one of the assessment tools we will be using will be our traditional screener that we use, which is Renaissance, and that's available online. And we will actually when a student logs into that Clever portal that we talked about where everything's located, they'll be able to access it through that. But the one-on-one assessment conferences that will be happening at the elementary are really around assessing literacy and phonemic awareness and some reading skills. So those will be likely a face-to-face like Google Meets, where we have some diagnostic screeners and some assessments that we'll be using commonly across the elementary to kind of see where kids are at in their skills and where they retained and where they could use some instruction.
So a question had to do earlier about problems with a student email or student view. Who can they contact for help? And I would just say at this point, call each of the building secretaries and they can help you walk you through that and get those changed. Mr. Jackson, I'll put you on the spot, but I know out of the counseling office today came information about the need for parents to go in and double check information in Synergy. Is that correct?
So the email that has been referenced in the challenges, apparently that many students did not receive that email. It talks about a number of steps that we're looking at to have investigated in with regards to registration. One of those is just simply to make sure that all of your contact information is up to date and accurate. And you can access that on the district webpage. Yes.
Thank you. Another question is, does my middle school child have an email to use?
Yes, all students K-12 have a Google account through the district. At this time, we don't usually activate the elementary students until they reach 6th grade, because just logistics of managing email, as you know, as an adult is challenging. So to add that to a young student's plate is also an extra layer. So, but they can access things through Remind and through the calendar that comes with their account. But middle schoolers, 6th graders on up, have an Astoria School District Google account, and that will be something that will be reviewed with them and with you at that conference.
Good. Mr. Jackson, here's another one. If advisory is based on high school math, what do they do if a high school student is not taking math this year?
Those are the primary deciders on where a student is placed. If that's not the case, then they are oftentimes allocated to those teachers who teach primarily that particular cohort. So if your son or daughter happens to be in 11th grade, they would be assigned a teacher who primarily teaches the 11th grade cohorts. In this particular situation where we have upperclassmen that have classes at the college, some of them are in the advisories of the counselors or those who teach primarily seniors.
I would also mention that Angela Talley, who works at the district office, suggests that high school students and parents for that matter check their spam folders. Some mass emails can end up in spam. Another question is mentioned, is there a plan in place should there be an outage or downed internet? Will there be packets as in the spring? Melissa, you want to talk about the paper copy part we've talked about?
I would love to.
Thank you.
What we talked about was that we know that there are going to be instances where students need access to paper copies, where either technology, connectivity, schedule things could be an issue. And that's part of why we're having those conferences, is just to assess how we can best get students full access to what they need. In the event of a power outage or downed internet for multiple days, we would obviously need to revamp that plan a little bit, and kind of it might look a little bit like it did in the spring, but we haven't worked that far out. We're just trying to, really honestly, I'm just being totally transparent, to really think about how it's going to work right now for the basics, like trying to get them access at the most basic level, and what to do for those students and families who that just is really a hardship, or really there's just a barrier that is presented to have access to technology. And each school is working on a system on how they can provide that when it's warranted for students and families.
Mr. Jackson mentioned at this time graduation is scheduled for Saturday, June 5th. at 4 p.m. Scott Williams asks, are any test scores assessments from last year being used as a starting point for this year?
All of our teachers will have access to students' scores from last year, but just as a reminder, the last time students were assessed during the regular school year last year was in our winter window, which was in January. So we can definitely use that as a guide, but we really feel at the elementary level, especially, and for all levels, K-9 for sure, we're doing that Renaissance assessment just to kind of see where students are at. I know that even as I'm the parent of a student who was a senior last year and is now working on taking his math placement for college, and just that being out of practice of using some of his math skills, he's had to kind of brush up on some of them. So it's going to be good to get a baseline for all of our students right now, and to just kind of see where they are.
Mr. Jackson mentioned that they will. He will resend the student schedule email again tomorrow, but I would also emphasize to parents, if you or your kids do not get that email, to call the offices where your kids go to get those emails confirmed. Garrett asked, when will school supplies be delivered? He's not referring to Chromebook, he's referring to school supplies. And I want to say it's either the 16th or the 17th or the 17th and the 18th. And we would have delivered those the same time as the Chromebooks. But not all the school supplies have come in.
So, Mr. Hoppus, if I may, this is Linda Brack. My understanding, and Heather, if you're there, but my understanding is the 17th and 18th is school supplies.
That's correct. And our school supplies, as well as our computers, will be delivered by our transportation department. Another question, will the grading system be alphabetic grading scale? I referred to, I think, middle school or high school.
So I can speak to that. At the middle school level, we will do an A through C grading scale. If a child does not complete the coursework at a 70% or higher, we are going to look at an incomplete option to give them the opportunity to remedy and bring that grade up. Traditionally, the window has been 2 weeks. We're in discussion about if we need to extend that given the restrictions and constraints of remote learning, but it will be a C through A with an option for an incomplete with opportunity for kids to make up.
And Mr. Hoppus, this is Ms. Helen Martin, if I might join in. The school supplies on the 17th and 18th will be a mass pickup opportunity and not a delivery for the first round. So just to note that.
Sure. So what she means by the first round is we'll provide parents the opportunity to pick up school supplies, then any supplies not picked up will be delivered, but we're going to encourage parents to pick supplies up because we have about 1,900 students. Another question, will upperclassmen still be receiving college credit for AP and honors classes? Mr. Jackson?
So there is counsel from the Higher Education Coordinating Commission that is working towards that goal. It is something that you have to coordinate with your local community college or university extension. And at this time, we have not heard back from Clatsop Community College. We are therefore planning the courses that have generally been articulated to still end up with that capability, except for History 202, 203, that will not be an option this year. Others, we are still proceeding forward as if we are able to award that college credit, but that has not, let me repeat clearly, that has not been finalized with Clatsop Community College, as there are two ends of this bridge that have to have alignment based upon their commission and then ODE on our end.
Another question, will we have a yearly school calendar or is it month to month? That's a good question because since March, the calendar for this year has changed 2 or 3 times. At this time right now, you can, we have a yearly calendar. It's on the Astoria School District website. We do not foresee any changes to that calendar as of now, but we'll be revisiting that as we go forward. We want to maximize the number of days we have. But again, as we go forward, we will look into that. But you can go to our website and get the calendar. Elementary students have weekly meetings with the school counselor. Is Mr. Pluhoff on this call?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
So we are in the process of working through that. Miss Blacker is available and is planning on some things, but I couldn't guarantee it would be weekly with as many classrooms as she would have to get to. But we are putting a schedule together for that, and we will have that available as soon as we can.
I will also mention that one of the areas that we've worked on for the last month or so, and are providing training for staff this week, as well as I think some happened last week also, is for staff to be able to, school staff to be able to provide some of those lessons, the regular teachers, while they're in the, students are in the classroom, because we know that's needed. So not only the counselors, but there'll be regular teachers also. Esther asked, I do not recall if I marked down that I will be needing a Chromebook for my child. Where can I make sure that I'll be able to use one? Heather, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, initially we're going to do the delivery to people who put information into the survey. That's going to be our first round this week. And then we're working through the tech requests that we have had today and delivering that next week. My initial reaction is to say, let's get you put into the Learning Hub at the school that's closest to you so that you can have access to online live meetings or recorded meetings or time to do schoolwork at the Learning Hub. And then as devices are delivered or internet is, you know, that you connect, you can opt out of that. But opting into the Learning Hubs is going to be the best way to do that.
Another question around high school, and it had reference to the answer to Mr. Jackson around honors U.S. history for juniors. Mr. Jackson?
That is correct. The Honors U.S. History class, the nature of that course in and of itself is not one in which we can do effectively in a remote learning model and cover the assessments and the skills that are requisite for the 202-203 requirements under Classic Community College.
Another good question is, if our transportation needs change from the last time we took our survey, can we retake the survey, or is there someone we should be contacting? That's a good question.
Mr. Hoppus, if I may,
Yeah.
because hello, Nancy. This is Linda Breck, and I do remember you. Nancy was a former student, which is very exciting to have her child at the middle school. For me personally, if your transportation needs have changed, a direct call to our school would be very, very helpful, because at middle school, all of our cohorts and all of our classes are built on transportation. So if you would contact our school office and let them know, that would be helpful. Other buildings might have different needs, but for the middle school with Sunny, if you could let Natalie know, that would be very helpful.
I would also say that because we're this far along, I will just make a blanket statement that if there's transportation changes, to contact the schools directly and not go back and take a survey. Any other questions from people in the meeting? We got to allow people who are on phones to ask questions. So at this point, anybody who's on a phone who is not able to type their question, if you verbally want to state your question.
I have a question.
Okay.
I wasn't able to go to last week's meeting. but I did look at the email and look at the presentation that had been sent out. And I'm curious why the younger kids are starting an hour earlier than the older kids. I feel like it's a little bit easier to get some older kids up and ready to start their day than it is to get kindergarten and first graders up.
Good question and good comment. I will double check on that, but I also know that they had to spread the calls out based on when meal deliveries were going to take place. So they all had to be done by a certain time. I do not know what the thinking was when they chose to do that. But thank you. It's a good comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from people who are just on phones? I'll also mention that they're scheduling, as they mentioned, but teachers will be adaptable to change schedules if they need it based on how things are working out. So, okay, I'll also mention a couple things. This is the first round of orientation for parents next Tuesday. There'll be a lot more specific information, as Ms. Linder mentioned. Had a good sized group in here. This is being recorded, so we'll send it out. I want to thank parents for their patience with us. We have a good plan. It's taken a little bit to get in, but I know the staff are back at work, really working hard, and want to help get the year off to a good start. And the strategies we have in place will help with that. So I just want to thank everybody for their patience as we move forward. Thank you.